The Chicago Bears hung right in there with a first-place New Orleans Saints team, but the penalties and the turnovers, largely from Tyson Bagent, kept this team from really putting it all together and getting the upset victory.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook, join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk, and make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. On the show today, we recap the Bears' loss to the New Orleans Saints, starting with the performance of Tyson Bagent, one that was very up and very down. It was a bit of a roller coaster, perhaps more than we anticipated from someone like Bagent, who made some really nice, impressive plays, operated the offense at a high level for a lot of this game, but threw 3 interceptions and gave it up on a fumble and ultimately contributed to 4 of the team's 5 turnovers in this game that, to me, Tyson Bagent both kept the Bears right in it and also pulled them right out. So we'll kind of make sense of his performance and where things go from here for him. We'll touch on this Bears defense that I think lost in all those turnovers was the defense keeping them right in it and not giving up easy points immediately following a lot of those turnovers. Then we'll wrap up kind of looking at where things go from here with Justin Fields potentially coming back as soon as Thursday against the Panthers. Well, the supporting cast around Bagent, the O-line playing pretty well in this game, receivers making some plays here, the play calling seemed to be a little bit better. Could Justin Fields be coming back into a more favorable situation now? We'll kind of look at where things stand on this Bears offense. But the story for me was the ups and downs of Tyson Bagent on this offense. Because really, there were some moments in this game, especially early on, when it really felt like this offense was clicking. He was getting into a rhythm and doing many of the things that we've come to learn Tyson Bagent does well, right? Really effective at the line of scrimmage, getting the plays in and, checking plays at the line of scrimmage, making sure guys are getting lined up correctly, getting things executed that way. Then after the snap, quick reads through his progressions, decisiveness, quick release, taking care of the football early on for the most part in this game, getting the ball into the hands of his playmakers and not always trying to do too much. Not trying to force it super far downfield all the time, but just kind of take what the defense gives you more or less here and there. And they were scoring points. Heck, having 2 touchdowns in the first half felt like a nice change of pace after a little while here. But ultimately, things start to fall apart when these drives start ending in turnovers instead of just touchdowns or in some cases, punts or field goal attempts. And that's where things really get derailed here because 3 interceptions and the strip sack. And then DJ Moore, of course, had the fumble there that was kind of uncharacteristic of DJ Moore. That's what I'm not really too worried about as being something to keep an eye on moving forward. But Bagent is one where we're still learning about him, and he's still learning about how to play NFL football. I think that first interception, I think he was throwing it towards Cole Kmet on the right side there, that to me felt like a play that he got away with in Division II at Shepherd, but those windows close a lot faster in the NFL, where I think that's one where he throws it and then sort of learns from that and realizes I can't against that coverage, that kind of route and that kind of space, I can't trust that a corner's not going to be able to get there in time. The corners at D2 aren't as fast as the corners at NFL. And so that's one where I think, it wasn't like it was like a bad decision or even a bad idea. It was just it turned out to be a bad idea, but it was one that was supposed to work and had legs to it, but knows now that he can't get away with that one in the NFL. The other 2 interceptions were both throws that were late in terms of getting to the receiver and also behind the receiver where the coverage was. And we saw that some, even going back to his first start against the Raiders, there was that throw over the middle of the field to Tyler Scott that was a little late and behind, but Scott was more open and caught it, and it wasn't picked off as these two were against the Saints. And this again feels to me like something that, not that he could have gotten away with it the same way at the Division II level, but it's more like adjusting to the speed of the NFL game. That throw has to be out sooner and has to get there quicker and has to be put more out in front. Like those are throws that, if he threw them accurately, those were good decisions, right? If the placement, the idea in his head when he was getting ready to throw that ball was the right idea, that was the receiver he was supposed to target. He just needed to target them better, right? And so that's where we talk about, arm strength and velocity being a part of this. And I know everyone points to the scouting combines, but well, his radar gun at the combine velocity was second highest, or was up there with Will Levis or whatever, but that's not in-game velocity play speed. Like at the combine, when you're loading up and trying to throw it as hard as you can from not even a real pocket, you can get a higher velocity than in the middle of a game. You're trying to make this throw over the middle of the field. You're stepping up and around, pressure in the pocket, and just trying to throw it. Like velocity is not equally measured in all situations the way it is at the combine. And so like arm strength is I wouldn't say it's an issue for Tyson Bagent, but it's not a strength. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a deficiency. He's not weak. He's not noodle-armed compared to like some weak quarterbacks we've seen in the past, but he's just not a gunslinger, cannon arm guy either. And so he's got to learn that he's got to put those passes more in front. And if it's a mistake he's going to keep making, well, that tells you a lot about where his trajectory might be as an NFL quarterback. And that's kind of where things go from here with him, right? It's like he makes such the nice anticipation throws and the pocket presence, stepping up and around pressure and getting rid of the ball quickly and quick through his progressions. Like those are some of the harder things to teach any quarterback to do, especially a young, rookie quarterback coming out of Division II. And so we've seen a lot of his interceptions so far this season be those ball placement type issues. Last week against the Chargers, and the one to the left side where he tried to hit the comeback route but underthrew it, and so it was picked off pretty easily. And then the first game against the Raiders, I think it was, he took a deep shot down the left sideline, underthrown DJ Moore, picked off. Like trying to hone in that ball placement of like knowing his arm versus NFL speed, I think is just something that he's still trying to adjust to. But we're seeing it take this different forms, but like the same issue in these interceptions. And so like for him, that's a major area that needs to be cleaned up, because that's the kind of thing that was really holding this team back throughout this game. It was 5 turnovers plus the penalties around Tyson Bagent. 8 penalties in this game, really putting him then in longer down and distance situations. Those penalties weren't on Tyson Bagent, of course, but a lot of, we saw a couple holding penalties, some false starts. I mean, Darnell Wright got flagged, Braxton Jones got flagged, Lucas Patrick got flagged. I think Cody Whitehair might have in there as well. It was just those kind of things kept holding the Bears back. Whenever they get close, or they start to get a drive together, they start to move things forward. All right, penalty here or penalty there, and then ends in an interception. And it's like, God, they were just starting to put it all together, and instead were brought back by those like self-inflicted wounds and miscues that are frustrating in a game like this. I think a little bit what gets lost, though, with the turnovers especially, is how well the defense was able to withstand those and withstand really good field position that the Saints got on a lot of these drives. We'll take a closer look at how well this Bears defense played despite giving up 24 points next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Whether you had to fire your running backs coach and you're looking for a replacement, or whatever the equivalent is on your team, LinkedIn is going to give you access to all of the best candidates, and then you can use their simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This won't go down as like a great Chicago Bears defensive performance in this game, But it struck me over and over again, especially down the stretch in the fourth quarter, how well this defense did to keep giving the offense chances to stay in this game and to keep fighting back to the point where, Bagent gets the ball late in the fourth quarter. Well, how much time was left? It was 2 minutes and 26 seconds. Bears had the ball down 7. Like, that's an opportunity for them to drive down and tie the game late in the fourth quarter. And of course, that one ends in the strip sack and it's a ball game from there. That was predated by a penalty. We just talked about penalties and turnovers really killing this Bears offense. But like throughout that fourth quarter, it was really, really solid defense, especially in responding to those turnovers, right? Right within that fourth quarter, we had two Bagent interceptions in the fourth quarter. Let me double check. I got one there scrolling down. Yeah, 2 Bagent interceptions and then the Bagent strip sack at the end. So we had 3 turnovers in that fourth quarter, right? The Bears defense did not give up any points off of any of those 3 turnovers, despite the Saints getting good field position. Like in the fourth quarter, they gave up a touchdown on the first drive when they had a decent punt return. And the Bears punted from being backed up. Their punt returner got like 13 yards, so they started across midfield. That one they drove down and got a touchdown there. But from there, the Bears followed that with the interception where it was behind Mooney, picked off. Saints start at the 38-yard line of the Bears, right? Like, basically, they start in field goal range. And that was the one where they got down to 4th and 1, and they tried the QB sneak to Derek Carr, and the Bears defense held them. They could have kicked a field goal and gone up 10, but they decided to go for 2, and the Bears absolutely held them back. Next drive, Bagent throws it for Tyler Scott over the middle. Short behind him, picked off. Saints take over at the 46, so just not quite into field goal range, but already past midfield. 3 and out. A Kamara run for nothing, a check down to Chris Olave, tackled right away by Jalen Johnson, and then Derek Carr missed a pass to Michael Thomas, and then they punted again. And then, of course, like the last one was, I guess, after the strip sack, it was garbage time at that point, or they were just trying to run out the clock. But regardless, like throughout that fourth quarter, the defense kept giving them opportunities. Whenever the Saints would get that good field position, defense did a good job. Like they shut down Alvin Kamara for the most part in the running game. He finished with 26 yards on 9 carries. Just 2.9 yards per carry. He had one big screen pass for 17 yards that opened him up as a receiver a little bit more. But like Taysom Hill was the one who was doing a lot of the damage as a runner for them, and that's a very different style of run defense there. That's like 10 blockers for Taysom Hill. It's kind of I don't want to call it gimmicky, right? But that's not like line them up and hand it off run defense. It's a little bit more of a different style of system there. So for the most part, like the handoff running game for the Saints was pretty well shut down. Derek Carr did not get to benefit from much of a running game in terms of his style of offense. It was only when Taysom Hill came in that they could run the ball a little bit more. And like Derek Carr still only finished with 211 yards. Like he took care of the football. It was 25 of 34, 2 touchdowns, a decent passer rating. But it was a lot of like dink and dunk and earn their way down the field. The Bears defense tackled a heck of a lot better this week than they did last week against the Chargers. There were still some missed tackles. It's never a clean, perfect game, but especially the linebackers, Edwards and Sanborn, stepped up and made really nice tackles after the catch to make sure that a lot of those underneath throws that Derek Carr made didn't end up, breaking the tackle, and what should be a 5-yard check down becomes a 15, 20-yard catch and run play. Like this defense was doing a good job of limiting the damage wherever they could, despite their own offense turning the ball over 5 times. Like the Saints really didn't get points off of turnovers in this game, and that was so critical towards keeping the offense back on the field. Like I don't think, as I double checked the first interception from Tyson Bagent, they did get 7 points off after that first interception, but only after they had to go 10 plays. The Bears defense made them earn it all the way down the field, despite starting near midfield. But for the most part, like they did a good job of not just rolling over every time the offense gave it away. This defense is getting healthier, despite not having Tremaine Edmonds, but the secondary is getting healthier. Still didn't have Jaquan Brisker, but you're making progress. Montez Sweat gets a pass defense in there, bad a pass in there as well in Derek Carr's face. Like the pass rush still isn't good enough, but like you're feeling something that feels a little bit like progress again from this Bears defense. After they got embarrassed a bit against the Chargers and really looked bad, it's like, okay, maybe they settled back in a little bit. Maybe they weren't as good as we thought they were when they were beating up on Brian Hoyer and Sam Howell, like really bad offenses, but maybe they're not as bad as they were against Justin Herbert and the Chargers that really lit them up all game. Like maybe this Saints game kind of shows they're somewhere in the middle. they're not a great defense. They might not even be a good defense, but they're not a terrible defense either. I think they find themselves somewhere in between. And sure, like 24 points is too many points for them to have given up. And there was moments where they needed to be better, but they could have. A worse Bears defense gives up a lot more points in this game because those turnovers were giving the Saints the ball at the 45, at the 35, like on the edge of field goal range. And the Bears only gave up 1 touchdown on 5 of those big time turnover situations. Like that to me is a great way to reflect like this defense making the most out of an otherwise bad situation when the offense was getting some points and not making it, totally unmanageable for them. But for the most part, not helping them nearly a ton. And so that's where I think we can be, I don't know, is impressed too strong of a word by this Bears defense? Or can you feel like there's something there? Like they have some legs here. They're not devoid of talent. It's not a horrible, no good defense that has no value whatsoever, right? They're finding ways to sort of piecemeal something together here defensively with a lot of new guys coming in, now a new guy coming in halfway through the season, guys changing in and out of the lineups. But I also think just like younger players getting better with more experience. Kyler Gordon, now that he's back into the lineup and settling back in, he had a decent game. Tyreek Stevenson is still up and down, but didn't get burned badly at any point in this game. Eddie Jackson back out there is nice. Jalen Johnson still playing well. Jack Sanborn. I mean, these guys are younger players, but and plus Eddie Jackson back in the mix that are stepping up and slowly, I think, getting more comfortable in this Chicago Bears defense. And in theory, Jaquan Brisker should be back sometime soon with illness. We don't really know what the extent of his situation is. And then Tremaine Edmonds' knee injury hasn't been serious enough to put him on injured reserve. So we don't know if probably Thursday feels a little too early to get those guys back, but sooner rather than later, we could get this defense back to 100% health and full strength. And, maybe they can start to help the offense a little bit more too. Because if they could have generated a turnover or two, that could have been enough to be the difference in the game. Like, that's why I'm saying, I'm not ready to like praise this defense as like a great game. Because if they had some turnovers and helped offset that 5-0 ratio, we might have a different outcome here. But at least they didn't let the offense's mistakes cascade into then like defensive problems on the other end. And that's worth something, despite everything else going on around this defense and this team this season. The Jalen Johnson trade request came in and played pretty well. We'll see if they can work on a long-term contract extension for him between now and then. Also moving forward, some questions about what's next for this Bears offense, because Ryan Poles said in an interview before the game that they're trying to get Justin Fields back for Thursday night against the Panthers. And, I think this supporting cast around Bagent playing pretty well right now, relatively speaking. So let's look at what the situation might be with Justin Fields and what he might be coming back into next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Now is the time to score with FanDuel. Right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets when you place any winning $5 moneyline bet. You just bet $5 if your team's going to win, and they're going to add an extra $150 in bonus bets on top of whatever you win on your bet. Like, for example, Panthers at Bears Thursday night. The Bears are 3-point favorites at home. It's been a while since we've said the Bears are any point favorites anywhere. So the money line for Bears is -166. You bet $5 on that. The Bears win. You're getting an extra $150 on top of your winnings there. The over-under set at just 40 points. So they're expecting another lower scoring game between two not so great teams, but a great chance for the Bears to win and for you to win even more with FanDuel. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, now is the time to get in on the action, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get your $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. There were moments in this game where Tyson Bagent looked like a guy that, you could start to, I think even at the halftime show, one of the halftime guys talked about like, will the Bears be able to go back to Justin Fields if Tyson Bagent keeps playing like this? And of course, threw 2 more interceptions and was strip sacked. But like, there were moments there where he looks more and more like a starting caliber player. And then, okay, the turnovers. And I think we've all, in theory, all is not universal, I suppose, but like most of us have settled in on like, okay, the Bagent stuff is fun and he can be a very good backup for a long time. And maybe sometime down the line, he could develop into a starter. But I think the consensus here is like Bagent could be a fun high-end backup, but like Justin Fields is still the guy for the rest of this season, right? You still got to bring back Fields, see more of what he can do, run the offense with him. And I guess if stuff really hits the fan, you could bench Fields and go back to Bagent, but no one, I think the consensus, reasonable mainstream opinion here is go back to Fields. Start Fields again. Fields has more overall talent, can do more, is more of a playmaker, but maybe just hasn't been able to be as consistent as we want him to be, but is a more talented quarterback if you can get all of that talent squeezed out of him. Obviously, a 4-day turnaround for the Panthers after he's been out for the last 3 games would be a tough ask, but it's all about the grip strength. I would be worried about rushing him back and trying to have him play when he can't grip the ball fully strong. So to me, it would make a lot of sense to still play Bagent against the Panthers and then give Fields that extra 10-day mini bye week break to then get ready to come back. Is it the Detroit Lions after that? That's a tough game to come back for. But still, like, it's all about him being at 100%. Like, I don't want a 70% Justin Fields out there because it's not going to really teach me much or help me learn much about him or see much of his development if he's not able to really squeeze the ball and grip it and rip it the way that he needs to. But he's coming back to an offense that has found some rhythm under Tyson Bagent, and I think there's some lessons there that Justin Fields can take, but also, like, he's just coming back to perhaps a better team that's more settled in. Like, you saw the offensive line in front of Bagent played pretty darn well. There were a handful of plays, if not more, where Bagent's dropping back to pass, and he's sitting there, and he's got time. You know what I mean? It's not that, I mean, it's the idea, is he holding on to the ball too long? Well, maybe, but like the offensive line is allowing him to, right? It's not like he did some escaping of pressure and stuff, but there were a lot of plays where he just has time to throw. The offensive line is blocking well, like pass protecting well in this game. It's not perfect. Still can always get better there, and the penalties hurt a lot of that, but like offensive line will be better for Fields in theory coming into this game than it was earlier in the season. You know, the lineup as it is right now has settled in a little bit. You know, Tevin Jenkins is playing really well at right guard. Kind of know what's going on with Darnell Wright at right tackle, is up and down, but does a lot of good things. You live with Lucas Patrick and Cody Whitehair at center and left guard. It's kind of working. And now Braxton Jones played well besides the penalties, but he's back. Like, things are settling in a little bit more for that group up front. So it should be a better offensive line for Justin Fields. Receivers. Darnell Mooney finally getting involved in this offense for what feels like maybe the first time this season. It's not, but it kind of felt that way. He led the team in receiving yards, 82. Didn't get the touchdowns. Cole Kmet got those, but 6 targets, 5 catches, 82 yards. That's certainly a season high in terms of receiving yards for him this season. I was just going to double check and filibuster momentarily. Yeah, it's a season high for catches as well. Not targets, but certainly catches. He's only had his best game before this, week 1 against the Packers. 4 catches, 53 yards, and a touchdown. This, 5 catches and 82 yards. He was making plays. He looked fast, looked explosive. It's fun to see Darnell Mooney out there running around again. We still know that DJ Moore is DJ Moore. Yeah, he fumbled, but I'm not too worried about it. And Cole Kmet caught a couple touchdown passes. Made the first catch was a really nice contested catch. Need a lot more of those at the current salary that he's making on his contract extension. But the other one, the second touchdown catch, was a nice play call. It's a nice design by Luke Getsy where, you know, Kmet stayed in as a blocker and then released and then sort of faded over to the end zone, and Bagent just kind of floated over the top, like on a play action type play. Like, quietly, Luke Getsy had a pretty good game as a play caller. Not perfect. They really abandoned the running game in the second half, even though they were tied and down 7 points. Like, they weren't losing by a lot, but they just kept throwing over and over again and didn't stick with the running game despite running well. Like, I still have my qualms, and I still don't think Luke Getsy's doing a good job overall, but this was a better game from Luke Getsy. You saw Tyson Bagent getting a lot of play action, a lot of rollouts that were like successful rollouts, a lot of read option and like scramble plays for Bagent. Like, it felt like Bagent was in the Justin Fields offense, or the offense that Justin Fields should be in, but we haven't seen enough of that for Fields so far this season. So like, if Justin Fields can come back, whether it's Thursday or Thursday against the Panthers or the following week against the Lions, whenever Fields comes back, if he can come back to an offensive line that's blocking well, receivers that seem to be getting more involved in the offense across the board, more Mooney and Scott and Cole Kmet have all shown us flashes the last couple of weeks, and then a offensive coordinator play caller who, for Bagent against the Saints, was calling the kind of things that we want him to call for Justin Fields. Like, maybe he could be coming back into a better situation than he left when he was injured, and you can feel like, okay, maybe it gives us a slightly clearer evaluation of Fields, independent from the supporting cast. It's like, okay, if things are going well around him on offense, and the defense is doing decently as well, then Fields should do well. And if he doesn't, that tells you a lot of what you need to know about Justin Fields, right? So like if he's still panicky and running around and holding on to the ball too long and taking sacks and forcing passes and doing some of the Fields mistakes that we've seen while the offensive line is blocking well and while receivers are playing well and while the defense is helping him out, like that kind of tells us where Fields is in his development. But if he can come back and get the kind of support that Bagent got in this game and has gotten for the most part over these few games, he should be able to do pretty well. Is it going to be well enough to, save his long-term future in Chicago and be the long-term quarterback franchise option? I don't know. That decision, not that it's already been made, but it might be too late to fully convince management not to draft a quarterback this year, but, still got to see what he can do. And, there's a lot of season left, and things are somewhat getting better here and there, despite sitting at 2-7 and really not being an overall great football team. We find some silver linings. We find some reasons to still be excited about this team on a quick turnaround to Thursday Night Football against the Carolina Panthers. We'll keep breaking down this game a little bit here, but then before you know it, it'll be Thursday. We got to get our game previews together. Crossover Thursday with Julian from Locked On Panthers is coming this week. We'll break down everything we need to know for that game, plus everything we still need to learn from this game. We'll go through the All-22 film and more, all here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Really appreciate you making Locked On Bears your first listen today and hopefully every single day. Come on back tomorrow for your next opportunity to bear down.